We covered earlier this week that Texas made the decision to open the state wide open, let her rip, canceling all guidelines, getting rid of the mask mandate too. Now, of course, there's been pushback and people saying this is incredibly premature. It doesn't make any sense. So now the Texas governor and lieutenant governor are shifting into saying it's undocumented immigrants and it's also Joe Biden to blame for COVID in Texas. Now, you might remember that all throughout Donald Trump's presidency, Trump and Texas Republicans were saying, wow, thanks to Trump, we've shut down illegal border crossings. Border crossings are at record lows. The wall, which they didn't build, has stopped border crossings. Crossings couldn't possibly be lower. That's not convenient anymore. Now they need something to blame for COVID. So the border crossings that they stopped, those border crossings are now to blame for COVID in Texas. Here's Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott earlier this week on Fox News.
The Biden administration was releasing illegal immigrants into our communities who had COVID. The Biden administration was spreading COVID in South Texas yesterday because of their lack of constraint of testing and quarantining people who'd come across the border illegally. The Biden administration was exposing Texans to COVID. That is Neanderthal type approach to dealing with the COVID situation.
That is just barely coherent. If you were wondering, did I have a brain glitch? Did I misunderstand that? No, it's just barely coherent. And then yesterday morning, here's Republican Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who previously said grandma's willing to die for the stock market, saying pretty much the same thing on Fox News.
And as Governor Abbott mentioned, I would call Neanderthal thinking of allowing people to cross the border illegally with COVID, tested positive, and put them on a bus.
Allowing people to cross the border? What is he talking about? They're just going to keep repeating this lie over and over again, as usual. And while listen, windmills push air around. COVID's a respiratory illness. I don't know. You're pushing all that air around. Maybe that leads to infections too. Now, to attach some facts to all of this. First of all, Biden isn't letting anyone in. Biden's been president for 5 weeks. Biden's presidency has had very little effect one way or another on COVID cases so far, other than ramping up vaccination, which is starting to have an effect on cases. Second, Mexico's per capita COVID case rate is about 1/6 that of the United States. In other words, the odds that someone coming from Mexico has COVID are 1/6 of the odds that a random American has COVID. And in any case, if Greg Abbott really believed this, that immigrants were bringing COVID to Texas from Mexico, it still wouldn't make sense to cancel the mask mandate and open everything. You'd want to be protecting Texans from those supposed Mexicans bringing COVID over, which isn't happening anyway. It was 100% predictable that they were going to pull this. They are pulling it, and lots of Texans, gleeful for the removal of guidelines, are going with it. Many Texans are not happy with what's going on. And there's an entire other Twitter movement that is behind saying, we do not support what Greg Abbott is doing. Maybe we'll get to that later on in the show. Let's take a quick break. Find me on Twitter at @Pakman. If you are anything like me, you probably aren't thrilled with the idea of going into a doctor's office right now. And thankfully, there's a practical and affordable way to take control of your health and get personalized care from the comfort of your home. It's a service called SteadyMD. They're one of our sponsors. You take a quiz, you get matched with a licensed primary care physician who understands your health needs. You have a 1-hour video call with your new doctor. You establish a meaningful relationship with them. And after that, your doctor is available to you anytime by text, phone, or video chat. This is not a random doctor on call. Each doctor at SteadyMD has a limited number of patients, so they actually have time to listen to you. You get the personal attention that you deserve. They can do almost everything an in-person doctor can do: perform medical evaluations, talk to you about health concerns, send prescriptions to your home or local pharmacy, and anything they can't do online, they'll quickly set you up with an in-person provider to do, things like blood tests, as an example. You don't need insurance. It's only $99 a month with no other fees or copays. There are so many practical advantages to using SteadyMD for primary care, and it's also so much more affordable Go to steadymd.com/Pakman to take the free quiz, see which doctor is right for you. I took their quiz. They matched me with a doctor who specializes in my particular health needs and situation. The doctor they gave me is a really perfect fit for me and my medical needs. There's no risk, no commitment to get started. Just click the link right underneath this video.